Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at Paris Prime. There was another augment released with the Entrati Syndicate at rank 4 that we can use for this weapon. It is known as Bhisaj-Bal. This mod restores 300 health for every 3 statuses you proc against your enemies. It also increases your status chance by 90%. Bows were always an underwhelming category in Warframe. Outside of the few exceptions in more recent times, such as the Kuva Bramma and its predecessor, the Lenz, most of them are based on crit and they don't really lend themselves that well to a hybrid build. It's a little bit difficult to build them this way, but if we want to get full use out of this mod while maintaining a DPS build, we're just going to have to try and make this work. After a lot of testing of corrosive damage or virals and heats and combinations of Prime Shred or Hunter's Munitions, I settled on this build. We're going to run Serration in the first slot for our base damage. We need to increase our critical chance with Point Strike because bows are crit heavy and this is what we need to focus on as well on a hybrid build. I'm running Hammer Shot instead of Vital Sense, sacrificing a little bit of crit damage so that instead we can spread our status better to fuel our procs as well as our augment. For the same reason, I'm running Split Flights instead of Split Chamber because I'm hoping I can offset the lack of headshot accuracy with spreading much more viral and heat procs to fuel our slash dots. Because Point Strike is enough to push this over 100% crit chance, I felt it was better to run Hunter's Munitions instead of Prime Shred here, since the principle is to spread as much status as possible upfront so that we can benefit from the augment. Punch Through can work here, but if I run that instead of Hunter's Munitions, I will be struggling to kill armored enemies since we're choosing not to run Corrosive. I'm not running Corrosive because my testing showed that Viral and Heat together here perform very similar to a Corrosive setup, and if I built for Corrosive, my damage type would be utterly useless against Bombards, since although it strips their armor, they're weak to radiation instead. Viral, which will perform equally on Bombards, Heavy Gunners, as well as all the fodder, significantly outweighs the minor benefits Corrosive would have against the Heavy Gunners. So you can see here, the heat procs are very important in reducing their armor as well as my viral stacks to multiply my slash damage. They seem to die in about 2 to 3 shots each, which is okay. I expect a little bit better, but this might have to do with me aiming at heads and then the shots missing due to split flights. Split Flights caps all the way up at 400% multi-shot. I'm hoping to be able to offset the accuracy issues and consistently hitting headshots by spreading much more viral and heat procs to fuel our slash damage. I'm not running Primed Shred because I expect the statuses I spread to very quickly amplify our slash damage and the rest of our procs while being able to shoot more arrows and produce even more procs into the crowd. This time we're going to swap out Hammer Shot for a Riven that I have. This is probably one of the better Rivens you could run for the build, since it fills up the crit damage that we're missing. It adds more base damage for if you don't want to set up with Vig Swap or other Arcanes like Arcane Rage, but it also has minus Puncture. The majority of the base damage from this bow is Puncture, so removing that increases the likelihood that we're going to proc Slash, which is the IPS status that we want. As you can see here, the damage makes a huge difference. Not only do I have much more upfront damage on the shots, the slash procs are significantly larger as well as more numerous. So now we're going to take a look at how Bhisaj-Bal can heal you. First, I'm going to unpause these AI so that I can take damage and put myself quite low on my HP. And now we're going to try setting this up again. I'm going to be using the Rivenless build here and aiming at their heads. I just need my split flights to build up a little bit, and as you can see, now I can kill them in about 2 shots. I'm getting a decent amount of health back per shot, I'd say about 300 to 600. It's not that particularly fast or anything amazing. It works, but it's only okay. Now if I compare this to the Riven build instead, we're going to try the exact same strat again where I aim at the heads here. It starts off slow since I need to stack my split flight procs, but then once I get it going, it's about 600 or so HP per shot, sometimes 300. but we have absolutely no problems proccing our status here. So you can definitely manage a hybrid build, aim at their heads, and still heal at a respectable rate. But what if I told you there was a better way to heal? This time I'm going to aim at the abdomen area. This is a bit more akin to spraying into a horde or a crowd, and you can see I'm getting almost 1,000 health per shot, and I maxed out my health way before I killed off all these heavy gunners, which was much more efficient than what I did last time. So if you want health faster, just spray into the crowd. If you want faster kills, aim straight for the head. Regardless, you can switch between the two, whichever one you need more, whether it be more damage or healing. It's unlikely you'll need that kind of healing often, so you'll just be aiming at the heads, which is good because that is how we've managed to maintain our good TTK on our hybrid build. Now, if you're looking for simple synergies, I'd like to show you what Xaku can do. This is an interaction with his 1, which is a subsumable ability that you can infuse on any frame. It significantly increases the DPS of your bow, and it lets you generate a ton of damage at once to kill tankier enemies, while still allowing you to proc as much status as possible to heal yourself. When you use Xaku's 1, it infuses your weapons with void damage. With our hybrid build using such high status, you are almost guaranteed to proc a void bubble on any enemy you shoot. Normally, if you're running Prime Shred, this is undesirable because this means that it will pull all your shots inwards and only hit the first enemy that you're aiming at. But since we're not running Prime Shred, what this is going to do instead is just hit the enemy that we're intending to aim at a lot better, making sure all our arrows connect to maximize the amount of status procs we do and significantly buff our slash dots outright. This will create a ton of status procs that will immediately heal you while also shredding your enemies. This is the Rivenless build that we're using here, and if you remember, it wasn't nearly anywhere close to as effective when we ran it on Inaros, but with our 1 from Xaku in play here, it's pretty much as strong as the Riven build I showed you earlier. This is a cheap ability to infuse, and with the changes that DE is soon making to void type damaging, it would make this ability more viable. I think we should check out what happens when we bring the Riven in play. The only difference is we're swapping out Hammer Shot. I'm going to cast my 1 again and shoot at the enemies, and you'll notice at this point they're basically one-shotting the heavy gunners. The amount of slash procs and armor reduction that I'm getting from all my arrows hitting is completely shredding their armor and throwing on much heavier slash dots than before. If you want to try a stronger version of this, I'd suggest you checking out Mag, who can run a Polarize build with armor strip so that you can bunch up a ton of enemies at once and have the arrows continuously hit them to force up more procs, setting up your augment more, and completely stripping them of armor and nuking them with slash. Now we'll finally take a look at the Eidolon build. First thing I'd like to say is bringing bows into hunts is never a good idea, and the second thing I'd like to say is this augment, you don't really have a use for it in hunts. You can't proc status on Eidolons, bombs are small, you probably won't be shooting them with your bow, so it really has no place there. But if you still want to bring this bow into a hunt, the build would look like this. You're going to bring Amalgam Serration for the extra sprint speed for your Archwing, you're going to need Point Strike and Vital Sense for your critical chance and your critical damage. We're also going to be bringing Argon Scope since my Riven doesn't have any crit chance on it, and running this guarantees I'll be hitting only orange crits or higher as long as Hero buff is active. I'm going to be running Split Chamber and Vigilante Armaments since Split Flights is not usable in hunts as the accuracy penalty is way too large. I'm using only Hellfire because it's combining with Shock Trooper to make radiation, and this is the same Riven as from before, where I get to stack up the crit damage that I have been missing. I'm going to replace the Augment with Terminal Velocity since in a hunt the real issue with projectile weapons is hitting limbs on time. There are much better ways to heal such as Wisp Health Motes or Trinity Bless or even Health Pad. Now we're going to take a look at the frame build in Arcanes. I'm going to be running Arcane Rage, same as the demonstration from earlier, and Acceleration to be able to notch my bows even faster. Vigorous Swap is going to be vital as usual in hunts, and I also need to run Shock Trooper to produce radiation as I only have heat on my weapon. So now let's spawn the 110 Drakkar Manic Bombards. I'm making sure I don't have CP on to not skew this test. This is going to simulate 0 CPs in a solo session. I'm going to proc my Arcane Rage and Shock Trooper, then I'm going to set up my shield and proc Vig Swap and shoot the thigh. You'll notice here that it almost one-shots them, so what this means is it's a little bit short on the damage. It should be okay in the case of a full squad where you have 4 CPs and a hero buff up to guarantee orange crits, but on a Hydralist, I still am not 100% sure if I can consistently one-shot the Limb. So a little bit of further testing might be required, but it looks pretty promising. This is definitely a Riven-only weapon for hunts. For normal gameplay, if you want to make use of the Augment to its best, I suggest you picking up a Riven also, as Paris has a pretty high disposition. That will be all for today, and thank you all for watching. See you all next time.